You ever notice how certain nights feel different? Not just loud or rainy or empty, but like the world has folded itself thin, like a page you can see both front and back. On nights like that, some people pray, some people lock their doors, some people drink to forget. My name is Owen Mercer. I used to work nights at a warehouse outside of town. It's a boring job. You move boxes, you clock out, you go home, you fall asleep, you do it again. But one night, one particular night, everything changed. It started at 03:12 a.m. Part 1. The First Wake. I woke up to the small flicker of the street light through my blinds. My alarm was off. My phone showed 03:12. For a second, I thought I'd overslept. Then I heard it, a knock at my door. Knock. Knock. I live on the second floor, single building, thin walls. Knock at that hour means two things: someone drunk or someone who knows you keep weird hours. I shuffled to the door, heart beating a little faster than usual. A figure stood there, umbrella dripping on the welcome mat, tall, hooded. I opened the peephole and saw only the silhouette of a man facing away from me, as if he was looking at the night. I asked, "Can I help you?" No answer, just the rain. Just a slow breathing. Finally, the man turned. He looked up, and in that second, I saw his face reflected in the streetlight. Part 2. The Shock. I backed up from the door so fast the chain rattled. For a moment, I thought someone was playing a prank. I checked the lock. I checked the peephole again. The man, or whatever he was, had disappeared into the night before I could move. I called 911. I described what I saw. The operator asked me if I was sure I hadn't been drinking. I told her no. I told her I was at home alone. They said someone would come by to check. They never did. No sirens, no knocks. The building stayed quiet. The rain kept falling, and 03:12 faded on my phone to 03:16 to 03:17, like nothing weird had happened at all. I went back to bed, but the image of my own face in the streetlight haunted me, a reflection inside a reflection. I drifted into a restless sleep, and then I woke up again. Same time, 03:12.
Part 3. The Loop. This is the part you'll find hard to believe if you haven't lived it. The first time, I thought I had imagined the whole thing, maybe a stress dream. But the second time, waking to the same clock, the same knock, the same face, it stopped being a dream. I began to count the little differences. The knock was always 3 taps. The silhouette always had an umbrella. The rain, sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter, but always there. On the third morning, though mornings were meaningless now, I tried to change something. I put a chair against the door. I planned to open the peephole and confront whatever had looked like me. At 03:12, the knock came. I heard the umbrella. I gripped the chair. I waited. The knock stopped. Then came a whisper through the wood. "Why are you hiding?" A voice, my voice, but not mine. Weathered. Older. It sounded like someone who had been awake for a very long time. The chair splintered. The door gave. My hand went numb. They were in my apartment in seconds. A shadow lunged. I took one swing with my fist. I landed on him. We grappled. He smelled like old smoke and rain. When I got a look at his face, at my face, he was smirking, not with malice so much as pity, like he'd been waiting for me to finally notice. The next thing I knew, light turned to pain, sharp, sudden, like a cable pulling tight under my ribs. The world went gray. My last thought was an absurd image of the umbrella spinning slowly in the rain. And then, black. Part 4. Repeat and learn. When I woke up again, 3:12, I refused to play the same role. I had time between loops. Not much, sometimes seconds, sometimes a minute, but enough to think. So I started taking notes. On my phone, in the dark, under a jacket. I detailed every movement, every word, every breath. Loop after loop, I tried things. Calling the police earlier, stacking chairs, hiding in the closet, slipping out the fire escape. Each time, variations of the attack found me. Each time, I got different bruises, different throats crushed, different noises in my ears. But the face was always mine. It didn't speak much. It rarely spoke. When it did, it used fewer words each time. Why? Do you remember? You only ever come back to me. The voice hinted that it wasn't just trying to kill me, it was trying to make me remember. One night, I don't know which loop number it was, I managed to get the man in the hood on his back. I pressed my knee into his chest and tried to force answers. I have this memory like a photograph, rain on his lashes, water on his lips, the skin of his jaw trembling. "Who are you?" I gasped. He smiled with my mouth and said one thing. "You forgot us." Part 5. The Clue. After that, I paid attention to things I'd previously ignored. Small details, things that change between loops. The mug on my kitchen counter would be on the left in one loop and right in another. A scratch on the coffee table moved. Once, there was a newspaper folded into a column I didn't remember reading. On one of the folded pages, under a headline about railroad delays, there was an obituary. An obituary with my name in it. Not just my name, my full name, birth date, description, except the details were slightly off. A different city, a different year. I copied the details into my phone. They matched nothing I had ever known. They matched no one I could find online. But buried beneath the typed lines were pencil marks, like someone had circled a line to indicate importance. I started to map those pencil marks. They formed letters, a clue hidden in repetitions. The letters spelled one word. Remember. Part 6. Who is he? So I remembered. Or rather, I tried to. Memory came as images at first. A hallway I'd never walked. A child's laugh. A photograph of two men who looked like me standing shoulder to shoulder. I dug through public records. I scoured ancestry sites. Names blurred into other names. A century of faces with the same jawline, the same crooked ear. People who lived similar lives in different decades, often in the same town. Men who disputed the same street corner. Men who vanished. There's folklore in some places about doubles, about shadow brothers, people who are anchored to a place. We call them doppelgangers. We joke about seeing ourselves in windows or passing a stranger who looks like a cousin. But this was something else, not myth,
not simple reflection. It was a sequence, a chain, a lineage of selves that, for reasons I still didn't understand, shared a wound. The more I remembered, the more the puzzle fit together. This man in the hood wasn't trying to hunt me down at random. He was trying to fix an equation, one that involved both of us. He said we had forgotten. He said forgetting broke something.
Part 7. The Memory. I finally retrieved the memory in the loosest, strangest way. It wasn't in a photograph or a headline. It was a smell, a cheap lemon cleaner mixed with coal smoke, and then an image, a narrow room lined with filing cabinets, a single bulb, and a man folding a letter. I was that man, or I had been, or one of me had been. The letter said something like, "We cannot hold the line. The pattern breaks if we let them remember." It was signed with a name that matched mine, but not quite. The memory came with emotion, guilt layered over necessity. Someone, some version of me, had been tasked with something impossible, to maintain something called the line, to ensure continuity across versions of a life. When memory came in full, it also brought a flash of violence. Not the violence of a crime of passion, not the violence of cruelty, a precise, terrible decision. There had been a council once, a group of men who met in basements and back rooms across decades. They called themselves guardians in one loop, keepers in another. Their code was simple: preserve the line, prevent divergence, use force when necessary. If someone remembered too much, if they started to link lives, the line destabilized. So the keepers, men who remembered too much already, eradicated those memories in others. They erased, they killed, they corrected. They believed it was mercy. They called forgetting a protection. And one of those keepers had been me.
Part 8. The Confrontation. Armed with this knowledge, I made a plan. If the man outside was me, a keeper, then I needed to stop the cycle in a way the cycle didn't expect. I needed to force change so fundamental that the pattern would break. I waited for the knock. I set up cameras, cheap ones, motion activated, and hid their feeds in a bag beneath my coat. I placed flour along the hallway so prints would show. I placed my phone in the window pointing out. I wrote a single note and left it on the kitchen table. If you are me, listen, remember. At 03:12, the knock came. 3 taps, a rustle of umbrella. The man in the hood turned like a metronome. He looked at the peephole, then at the kitchen window where the note would be visible. For a breath, his shoulders tensed. I opened the door a crack, enough to slip the camera out and get one angle. He stepped into the hallway and I grabbed him. We fought like men who had rehearsed the same fight for decades. Familiar motions, near misses, a loop of muscle memory that belonged to both of us. I shouted, "Remember!" I hit him with the flat of my hand, hard. So hard I felt his cheekbone tremble. For a second, his eyes flickered. An old man's sorrow, a child's fright, my own face in a different mirror. He whispered things that made the room tilt, names I'd never heard, dates that looked like coordinates, a phrase that kept returning in my notes. Align the line. With a sudden violent motion, he pinned me and forced a knife into my hand, or maybe I imagined it. The details are messy here. Time folds so strangely near the edges. But the important thing, he hesitated.
For the first time, he hesitated the split second before the final blow. His eyes found mine, and there was sorrow in them. Not cruelty, not triumph, but repentance. "Remember," he said again, "you promised." That word, promised, cracked everything open. I remembered the counsel, the binding, the oath we swore to keep the line. I remembered taking part in erasing other lives to keep our pattern clean. I saw faces that had been shadows, children taken, lovers forgotten, names erased from public records. I remembered signing my own name on a list to be corrected if necessary, a cruel bureaucratic phrase. I had volunteered or had been convinced to step into a role that now hunted me. Part 9. The Turn. I pulled back. I made a choice that surprised even me. Instead of pleading, I said a name, aloud. The name of a man I found in those old records, someone my notes told me had been erased. I said his name and told the keeper to stop. There was a flicker, a memory passing through his eyes. Not just mine now, but many. He staggered, he sobbed in a voice that was not masculine, not old, not young. A mosaic of versions. Then he did something I never expected. He removed his hood. It wasn't an act of attack, it was an offering, a sharing, a confession. And when his face, my face, was fully visible, he looked at me with such exhaustion that I felt my own knees give. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We only ever did because we were afraid. Afraid of the fracture, afraid of what happens when the line snaps." I said, "You started forgetting. Why do we forget?" "Because remembering is the only way to break it," he said. "Remembering creates divergence. Divergence is dangerous. But more dangerous is living a life not your own." Part 10. The Decision. He lowered the knife. He looked at me, at who I had been and what I had done. For the first time, I saw not an enemy, but a mirror of possibility. He could continue. He could force the script until the end of time. Or he could repent. I realized then what I needed to do. To stop something you helped create, you must undo a part of yourself. I spoke slowly. I said the oath I found in an old file in my memory. A line about keeping the continuum, about binding, about sacrifices. Saying that oath out loud felt like tearing a bandage from a wound. It hurt. Then I said the name of the man whose obituary I had seen, the man who must have been erased to keep the line. I said it like a prayer. The keeper heard it. He cried. He collapsed. He begged me in my voice to remember only what would stop the cycle. He wanted me to forget the rest, to make certain small sacrifices so the future would remain tidy. But I had changed. I could no longer live with erasures. I had seen the cost. I refused. "I will remember," I said. "Everything." And with those words, something in the night shifted. Part 11. The Break. He lunged. I stepped aside. His knife missed my shoulder. For a moment, it felt like the old loop, the final strike, the hollow collapse. But the motion felt wrong. He was off balance in a way he had never been. Memories surged through both of us. Memories not ours alone, but borrowed from lives that should never have been connected. He dropped to his knees. The umbrella tumbled from his hand and burst open, a small, useless flower under the overhead lights. He put his head in his hands and sobbed like a man who had watched continents burn in miniature. I stepped away. I took the camera I had slipped out earlier and held it up. The camera captured the moment. The rain, the reflection of two faces that were once the same, the trembling hands. I could have run then. I could have fled the pattern and left everything behind. But I stayed. I helped him to his feet. We went out into the rain. We walked together, not as enemies, but as two halves of an ugly truth. I promised him then that I would remember for both of us. I promised I would carry the knowledge and tell the names and the dates and the faces. I promised I'd find others like us and do what I could to protect them from being erased. Part 12. The Aftermath. The next morning, 3:12 came and went. The knock did not. When I woke, the house was quiet in a different way, not empty, but relieved. The notebook I had filled with loops lay open on the table. The flower prints were wiped clean. The camera's battery was dead, its memory card full of images that I didn't yet dare to upload. I called in sick to work. I canceled my shifts for a week. I started to compile everything: the names, the obituaries, the little pencil marks, the council clauses in my memory. It would take time. It would take money. It would take nights like that one, long and dangerous, to find others who had been touched by the line. But I had something the keepers never wanted. I remembered that we had chosen. We had bound ourselves to a duty we hadn't fully understood, and remembering felt like stepping into a storm with a lantern. Part 13. The Twist. There is one final detail I must tell you. I promise no ambiguous endings, and this is the truth. I am not entirely free. The keeper, former me, gave me a list the night we walked in the rain, a ledger of names, dates, addresses, people the line marked as unstable. He asked me to do something with the list, to store it, to warn. When I opened my phone this morning, there was a single message. No number, no name, just 3 digits. 312. And a photo. It was me standing in the doorway, but not taken that night. The photograph was of a different loop, a different version. The face looked weary in a way I had not yet learned. I slid the photo into my notebook and closed the cover. So here is the twist I carry to you now. I stepped out of the pattern, but the pattern had already made room for me to remember. It had allowed me the mercy of memory because someone before me chose to do the same. We are many, in pieces, walking through each other's lives. Some of us become keepers. Some of us become the hunted. Some of us choose to remember. I chose to remember. Epilogue. The Promise. So if you ever hear a knock at 0312 and see a face you recognize, do not look away. Do not laugh it off as a trick of the light. There are things we are asked to forget, and sometimes we must refuse. I am not a hero. I am not brave. I'm a man who finally remembers and will try to make right what we once made wrong. Remember the names of those who were erased. Remember to question the convenient amnesia. Remember that forgetting can be a weapon. This was the story of the night I stopped dying for good. This was the night I met myself in the rain and decided to stop closing my eyes. Thank you for listening. If this story reached you tonight, share it with someone who keeps odd hours. Turn on the light once in a while. And if ever you see a face that looks too much like your own, ask it its name.